Hello, my name is Brandon Hartwell. Doing my project for LTEC 4510. It's on effective email and online communications. And I chose to do this particular one because I feel like in the business world in particular, knowing how to send an effective email or doing any online communications is very important, especially if you're in a type of field that may actually deal with legal ramifications. So before I can begin on how to send an effective one or what is an effective one, I'd like you to know what actual email is, kind of what makes up the email. The first portion of it would be the recipient. That's the to. So it's like to whoever at whatever.com, for example. So in this case, you'd put, to this person, this person, this person if it's a group. But you also have what's known as additional recipients, which could be your blind copy or your courtesy copy, blind courtesy copy or courtesy copy. And those are any additional people that you put in, and it's a lot easier in a business setting because typically they're in your network that you can select, which I'll talk a little more about that as we go. The next portion of it is a subject line. Now the subject line is actually a very telling portion. I'll get a little more into it in a little bit further on. But that is a really big portion of it that can actually determine whether something is highly important or if it's just a generic memo type email. Another portion is the body. I will talk about that as well because there's certain aspects of the body that need to be taken into consideration, especially when dealing with business type emails. And then any additional attachments that would be involved. That's another portion of the email that you'd have, so you're attaching pictures or documents or, anything like that, even if it's a video, for example, that you're adding to it. Those would be something you have on there as well. So right here is an example email. This is a very generic standard email. And like I said, at the end of this, I'll go over an actual email and I'll pretend to write one and kind of go over the subjects, lines and stuff, and actually be in one so that we can kind of get a better understanding. What we have here is a standard example email. You've got your send attach. You can save it for future. It's got a built-in spell check, which is nice. And then, of course, here there's a cancel. But you see the courtesy copy line, and then there's a blind courtesy copy, which, like I said, you talk to people additional for there. You got your subject line, and then you've got your, fonts, emoticons, spice it up, your formatting, as it were. But then you see where the body would be. That's the generic email. That's kind of what you want to start with. So we'll go into the recipients on who gets it. So a standard email will be like, for example, brandon.hartwell@gmail.com. So right here I've got me at standardemailsite.com. There's Hotmail, Gmail, all the different types, but this is just an example of it. The courtesy copy means you typically know the people that are in the network. So when you courtesy copy somebody, everybody else will know that they're getting that copy. Now, when you blind courtesy copy, it means you don't want to share the other recipients of that's getting the email. That's very common in business-esque situations. That's kind of where you'll find the blind courtesy copy. And that's basically as far as like who gets it. Now, jumping right in, what I said with the subject line is a require field. It's very unprofessional if you have a subject line that's blank, or if you have a subject line that's too wordy. It's a very brief summary of the content, or the subject line is used to portray the priority or the urgentness of the email, how urgent it is. A lot of managers, if there's something crazy's going on or there's a crisis involved, you would have urgent, take care of this, action, immediate action required. You look and then the content of the email is important. They want you to see that email right away. That's one way as like a boss you can use the subject line to help portray your information. In the body, you really want to keep it simple. I know I put on there to keep it simple to the point, but the body will have your main content. Now, when doing a business email, you want to be as formal as possible. You want to get all the information across. I summarized it in the subject line, so it'll say tomorrow meeting or meeting Monday, whatever. Well, if I have that in the subject line, then you would assume the contents of the body would be what is going to happen during that meeting. So it'd be, bulleted points, quick points that say we're going to discuss this, and this, and go on from there. And that's how what you'd have in the body to push that forward. Now, as far as like the actual content of the email and business emails, there's some content etiquette that needs to be involved, and that's making sure you're using proper capitalization, punctuation, so exclamation points and other symbols like that aren't very used very often in business type settings, so you want to not use those very often. And of course, grammar. So some emails don't have like a way of checking your grammar. So a good tool that I sometimes use is, I know Microsoft Word has that option, so I'll actually type up my email in Microsoft Word, or at least the body portion, and then copy it and paste it into my email after Word has done its spell checking and grammar checking to make sure I've got the email up to snuff, we'll say, because I want to make sure that everything in there is right and it's business or professional in its manner. Another thing too is you want to know your audience. Make sure that the content you're putting in your email is appropriate to who you're sending it to. So you probably shouldn't be sending, a funny cat video to your boss, right? Because that's not using proper work resources. But if it's, your own personal email and it's a friend, yeah, send all the cat videos you want if that's what you like, or little dog videos. I don't want to discriminate on pets, but whatever you prefer, just make sure you know the right audience that you're sending it to. If you contact somebody first time, typically you want to, unless it's a friend, you want to be very formal. You want to keep everything to the point, and make sure you address in the body, like you give them your feedback contact information. That'll be a part of it that I can explain a little bit later too. So I just have a few bad examples. You don't want to use any slang terminology. Totes, awesome sauce, ridic, short and words that, at least in my opinion, don't do well to it. And then using too many emoticons, the smiley face, sad face, all the winky faces, drawing little Kirby's with the keys, and then having the shortened versions or acronyms for I don't know, laugh out loud, not, NSFW is a not safe for work, but you wouldn't use that in a business setting anyways, right? I mean, you'd want to keep it very professional and not do something that would get you in trouble. But those are some examples, and then I actually have some more bad examples here. So, and this is dealing with more like fonts and the actual content of it. A standard email, you do not want to use colors. If you use it sparingly. Certain colors are meant for certain things. For example, red is usually an urgent or emergency. Yellow is like a caution or a warning. Blue can sometimes be for that as well. But on here, I mean, using different font styles, like a big hello, and to me, I'm going to read it, but hello, I was wondering if this was distracting to you at all. Yes, that is completely distracting. Not using proper italicizing or not proper proper sizing. You don't want to have different sizes all through it. And too many different colors is too distracting. Some colors you can't really see well. So whenever you're trying to really show a word or stress a word, you might want to use like a bold or an underline, not do what I have here, because then you can run into a lot of trouble that way. And then some added content that you put in there. If you're going to put quotes from people, and especially in a business setting, you want to make sure you're citing your sources properly. You don't do anything that can get yourself plagiarized, or don't plagiarize, don't use plagiarism. And then, like I said, quoting properly, that comes with the whole citing your sources. If I'm going to be putting content up there, you give people credit where credit's due. You don't want to be taking things from people and them not use it properly, or you not get the credit if you've done this great work and people are using it and you're not getting credit. It's just not right. And then another thing too is any images or files that are going to be added to it, you don't want to put it actually in the email itself. You want to use it as an attachment. An attachment like the pictures, for example, are really big when you put them on there. Even if you try to size them down, even if you know how to, you want to typically keep the pictures as a attachment so that they can pull it up if need be, and it should only correlate with the content. So in a business environment, you want to keep them professional. So for example, like if I put a Word document up there or an Excel document that's got the numbers for something, financial purposes, for example, you want to make sure that it's on there and it's not going to hurt you in any way. And make sure you have formatted, and also like make sure your software is up to date. So if I try to put a 20 or 2008 Microsoft Word document, they may not be able to pull up anymore. Make sure your software's up to date, because especially in an environment, in a business environment, you want to keep everything the same because it makes for everything to be easier and smoother. Um, and don't, here's a usually a thing they can get in trouble for at work. So don't use like business instant messaging or business emails for personal use. That's using company resources on your personal time, and that's usually not allowed. I know in a job that I have right now that it's definitely not allowed. And then just know that any information you'd use in a business setting is stored and it is public. So if you're sending all these emails or instant messages to your friends, and it is tracked and it is logged, and they can come after you for that. Also, do not use your personal email for work-related messages. For example, I'm not going to use my personal email to send a client information. It doesn't make sense. That why would I, they see a personal email at a Yahoo or Gmail, it wouldn't make sense to do that. You don't want to see it from a business professional setting. So it'd be at, company or however you have it set up. And the same, even whenever you're doing other things. So say, for example, you're doing other online etiquette, right? So you do like blogs or newspaper writing. All the same things apply. You have to keep it business professional and make sure you're spelling, capitalizing, punctuating correctly. I mean, how many times can you read, if you read an article and you see a whole bunch of misspelled words and stuff, bad capitalization, bad punctuation, you're just like, this guy isn't about what he's, portraying. You'd want to make sure to have, if you won't take he doesn't seem as credible, I guess is the main thing I'm trying to say there. And then just know your audience, keep it flexible. Not only all emoticons are bad in situations, some are okay. Just know when and how to use them. If it is an email between friends, you have the flexibility of being in an informal environment and get away with slang or acronyms. So if I'm just emailing or instant messaging or even texting, because you sometimes have to text from your personal phone or business phone to keep, you don't necessarily want to use slang or acronyms. But if it's a friend's, if my personal phone texting my friend, it's all good, right? You can pretty much do it as long as it's not something that they can get in trouble for, or their business phone, right? You don't want to get them in trouble. And just as a standard, I want you to know what netiquette is, just because it's online etiquette. I mean, it's just a cool slang for it, but it's the basic rules are the same as used for everyday interaction. And just know that in your electronic environment, you're dealing with people that are trying to do the same thing you are as far as business purposes. So if you're distracting them, you can actually hinder their work progress, and overall the company can suffer, or your numbers can suffer, for example, if you're in that type of environment. And then also know anything you type, post, or upload can and will be used against you in the real world. This is true. There's been people been fired for saying, "Oh, my boss is terrible at work," or "My company's bad," on Facebook. People get fired for that. In fact, people hire you based off of that. They look up your digital stamp and try to see what you're about. If you posted negatively about your other companies in the past, or they'll take on people if you're trying to be a counselor for addictions, for example. They don't want to see pictures of you drinking all the time on your Facebook. That's just one example. So before I go into like the example email, just wrapping it up, parts of the email, what and how much you put into those parts, the importance of your capitalization, punctuation, and grammar, and then which email types to use. Give you an etiquette, there's a time and place for everything, and the same rules apply as well. And then know for sure there's consequences for anything you put online. I mean, have you ever tried to Google yourself? Google yourself and see what comes up. Now, if you're a business professional and you're trying to hire you, for example, would you be okay with what you put on there? That's a big thing. So that's the end of this portion. I am going to go ahead and go over the example email. So it's what we have here. I want to make sure that this did pull up. Give me just a moment. Yes, it did. Excellent. Okay. So this is a Yahoo mail, right? I use Yahoo as one of my base emails. But this is in the compose section. So just go over the sections, kind of show you. If I was, to your boss or whatever is up here, you see that. But in the subject line, if you ever saw like urgent, all caps, exclamation. So first off, like they're using capitalization all the way, which is normally not used. But if it's your boss sending it and you see an urgent, you better get to this information. This is going to be very important. Or you'll see sometimes it's like first priority or priority one, that kind of stuff. Spell it properly, but you know what I mean. And that's part of the thing. And then, but you want to make sure that that's kind of, so if you ever did that, know that that's how they're going to react to it. If you have everything capitalization, it feels like it's yelling. And I'll show you this part here. There's a courtesy copy and a blind courtesy copy. So what we have here is if I did a courtesy copy, it'd be a whole bunch of other people would get this email as well. But everybody can see who I courtesy copied. Now, if I put them in this line, that's the blind courtesy copy. If I put the blind courtesy copy for every single person, nobody would know that they're getting it but me. I would be the only one to privy to that information. Here we have the body, and then something I didn't touch on is I wanted to make sure to touch on that you have to have a proper closing, especially in a business environment. Typically it's, sincerely, and then your name, and then after that you want to have your contact information and stuff like that. Your email, your phone number if that's the case, or giving information. So it's like, hey, if you need to get a hold of my boss or somebody else that's involved with this situation, that's what you do. And just know that in some situations, and in my new job, it's like this, that some of the stuff I send out has to go through legal processing to make sure that what I'm sending is going to be legal as a licensed representative of X or Y. Some documents you send are legal and they have to go through certain precautions. So you got to make sure everything's safe and secure. That's a really big thing in it. And as I said before, any attachments you can attach here, just going over the different basic things. Here's all my formatting for it. The emoticons, the inserting links, hyperlinks. You also want to keep hyperlinks down to a minimum. If you're going to try to direct somebody somewhere else, see if you can already download the form or whatever they need and have it as an attachment. That's usually easier. You don't want to make somebody have to do extra work when sending a business professional email. So after showing you this email, this is kind of where I'm going to stop here. I just wanted you to get a little better knowledge of proper etiquette in sending in a business environment, and that not only deals with email, but it deals with instant messaging and texting. If you have a business phone, for example, because like I said, it's all recorded. That is all known to you. And then, like I said, try Googling yourself. I think that's the fun thing. If I Google myself, how far up on the line are you? What is it? If, like I said, put yourself in a hirer's situation to where would they hire you if they see you constantly doing, pictures of booze, talking bad about your company? That's just Facebook, for example, but there's other social media outlets out there. So keep that in mind when sending out email or doing anything online, because it can and will affect you. There are stories out there. So thank you for sticking with me on this presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a wonderful night.